do it live. Okay. We'll do it live.
Drop the mic with Jason Hunt. All right, Alex, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, after us spending some time together in Bucharest, Romania, at an event, and heading out to a Bucharest beer garden for a meal and some beers, it just made perfect sense to continue that conversation on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you? So you do a lot of traveling, for speaking at events. Does it ever get old for you?
Does it ever get old? No. So the traveling is one of the better parts, actually, and it's can I say at this point I'm fortunate enough to be able to do the events that make sense and with both for me and my schedule. So having spoken at a bunch of events, I get invited to speak at a lot. So I am fortunate enough to be able to pick and choose the ones that are both relevant and make sense with my schedule. So it's not like I'm not like forcing myself to go there. So for sure, it doesn't get old. I think lots of learning opportunities and networking opportunities at these events. And sometimes I actually get surprised. People don't do them as often. And I'll tell you, at my company at SmartSites, we give all of our employees a $1,500 credit every single year to travel somewhere and learn something. So I believe it's not only important for me, but I think it's super important for everyone. Everyone in our company, it doesn't matter what level they're at. I think it's super important to get out of the office, virtual office. No one goes to our physical office anymore. Get out of your house. Let's put it out there. Get out of your house and go learn something new, see something new. I think it's super important.
Hanging out with you in Bucharest was actually quite inspiring because I wish I was able to extract that sponge as much as possible when it comes to getting the most out of a destination when you're there. You are walking at least 40,000 steps a day. You're not sleeping. You were there, I think, for 2 nights, was it? And that was it?
I was there, yeah, something like a night and a half, maybe. It's always like a red eye in, red eye out, but for sure. I mean, listen, flying to Bucharest from New York City, surprisingly, is not a quick or direct flight. So definitely, if I'm going all the way out there, I gotta get the best. I gotta see Bucharest. You gotta attend all the networking events, right? You gotta attend all the sessions. Can't spend time sleeping.
Mm-hmm. So how do you, AW Summit, fantastic event, great speakers at it. How do you, maybe there's some tips because obviously you're a veteran of going to events. How do you get the most of an event? And what is your goal when you're going to an event? Do you have goals set up? Or are you just kind of going with the flow? Do you want to extract, what kind of value do you want to extract from these events?
Yeah, very good question. So I think there's 2 different methodologies to this, and neither's right or wrong, but I don't specifically go in with very concrete goals. Depending on the event, I make a list of the sessions I want to attend, networking events I want to attend, people I want to meet with, but it's not super, super concrete. I think for people who are treating it as sales opportunities, it has to be a little bit more rigid, where you actually have to line up your opportunities. You have to message them ahead of time. You want to see the event attendees ahead of time, right? You have to reach out to them proactively. I think for people who are going there to sell something, I would certainly recommend putting a lot more effort in ahead of time and after the event. I think when I see people going to these events as a sales ROI opportunity, which I'm not, but for those there, I have to sell something, I have to get an ROI from this event, like that's your challenge with these events. I think the biggest problem I see is people don't put enough time ahead of time and then after. Like even if they're there the whole time, you're not gonna accomplish much if you don't do the before and after. And the before is, of course, you want to go and see. Most events show you everyone who's attending, right? There's usually apps so you could connect with people. You want to see who's relevant for you. You want to have a concrete strategy of I sell XYZ. These are people who I could either sell to or I could partner with, and reach out to them ahead of time, schedule times to meet up with them ahead of time, tell them where you're going to be ahead of time. I'm attending this networking event. It'll be great to see you there. And then after the event, you want to follow up with everyone as well. I see a lot of people just drop the ball after. So for sure, for people who are not company owners, let's say, they're representing a company and they have goals of to be ROI positive on attending, so the company could send them again in the future. For sure, I think you need to be very on the ball. For me, I try. Obviously, I'm not there to sell anything in these cases, and I try to take it a little bit more relaxed approach. Just because if I try to, I already try to do too much, so I don't want to.
You
I
know
don't want
what?
to go overboard.
My favorite approach to a show as a speaker, right,
Yeah.
is obviously, you know, I can sell services as well at a show if I want to, but there, if you're on the app, you know, you're inundated with these spam messages of people
Yeah.
wanting to sell this, that, and the other. And I just got blinders on for that stuff. I have no interest in entertaining any of those conversations. Even if I am looking for what they're offering, I'm not actually reading the mail because it's just sales. First sentence is like, okay, this is a sales email or sales message. On to the next one. I like to push people to go and see my chat or see my talk. It's like, hey, look, you know, if you're interested in this topic, here's my talk. Maybe I'll see you there. If not, no worries. And that's it. And then once they get to the talk, that's like almost like the trade show funnel, right? Get them into the room.
Oh, that's so the trade show funnel. So the ones that we've, and so my sales team does a lot of conferences, and it very, very rarely overlaps with my speaking. But when it does, talk about a funnel. That's exactly it. So you funnel everyone to a speaking session. And then at my speaking session, I mentioned that we have a booth here, and make sure to check it out. And at the end, I have a call to action. Anyone who comes to a booth in the next 2 hours gets this for free or something. So you funnel all of the people attending to the booth. So that's the complete funnel if you're both speaking and exhibiting, for sure.
We once had we actually coined it. This was years ago, pre-COVID, when we used to go to a lot more trade shows. Is that we coined it the popcorn attribution model. And what that was is we had a trade show. We'd get like 2 booths, and we'd have a popcorn machine there. And the popcorn machine, the smell of the popcorn popping and the sound of the popcorn popping would lure in people into our booth. So naturally, in order to get to the popcorn, they would have to speak to a representative, go through like a digital marketing audit real quick. And then as they're sitting there, they're getting their popcorn, right? It was this whole thing, but it actually worked really well at funneling people through, but it was the popcorn that really was drawing people in, right? So
forget which restaurant. There's a restaurant chain that does that. They get you in with the smells.
Oh yeah.
I know Krispy Kreme does that on purpose. They have the open baking areas. They make the donuts. But yeah, you know, it's interesting with conferences. I think most companies still struggle to be ROI positive on it. Talking to other companies, I don't know. I know everyone does it, and I know we do it. But if you calculate the full ROI for a business, so that means not only paying for your people to travel there, but opportunity costs. If they're traveling to an event, they're not by their computer answering leads, picking up phone calls, following up with people. So the true opportunity cost of everything it's very tough. I don't know, but I know everyone does it. There's a lot of, I know right before we start filming, recording, we briefly spoke about the automotive stuff. The NADA, it's a very big automotive event. If you look at their exhibit map, like, I don't know, thousands of exhibitors. And that I always struggle with how and as I'm sure you know, at some of these events, the companies spend like a fortune. I think some of the booths at NADA were like 500 grand. Like it's, and then they like sponsor these parties that are like will cost them $1 million. That's why I always struggle with that. I think out of all of our, as a agency, all of our lead channels, conferences are probably the lowest ROI, and we still kind of struggle with. And we could do so. We make websites and do marketing for every industry. So we could be in so many conferences. Like we're not industry specific. So we could, I would say not even thousands of conferences, probably tens of thousands. But I always struggle with that. And I try chatting with people when I attend, like that are there exhibiting and everything. But the problem is usually people exhibiting there are like the salespeople. And when I try to get out like an ROI from them, like, I have no idea how much it costs for me to be here.
You know what? It's really tough.
Here.
It's really tough to attribute ROI to handshakes. You know what I mean? You meet somebody at a booth, you shake their hand. 6 months later, they happen to be needing a website overhaul, and there you go. You're top of mind with them. But
so we track that. We actually, so those we track, and we're still not ROI positive, even tracking it through the entire funnel like that.
So, but because you're probably taking an omni-channel approach and not just focused on, well, did we get ROI from this show here? No, because they came in and the attributions on a Facebook ad or a Google search for SmartSites,
maybe.
right?
We've tried to do all types of analysis for it, but I'm sure I don't know. There's got to be, or everyone just does it because everyone else is doing it, right? Not to reference the same conference again, but NADA, the big automotive one. I spoke there a bunch of years, and one year I wasn't going to attend, and I was speaking to a colleague, and she was like, "What do you mean that you're not attending? If you're not there, people are going to think you're out of business." It's like one of those conferences that like everyone is there. If you're not there, people assume that like that's it, you're going out of business. So maybe that's why people like, I don't know.
So in terms of, let's say, automotive niche, okay, you had a booth at that show, I'm assuming.
We did not. I haven't done booths on any of them. I speak at almost all of them, but we haven't had a booth because for two reasons. One, it's very hard for me to justify ROI. Two, our agency and our sales team isn't auto specific, and I think we'd have a hard time having my sales folks on the ground floor at a conference where all the competitors are auto specific. I think we would be at a disadvantage.
Okay, yeah, I got you. My thought process there was simply, if you're speaking at an automotive show, and keep in mind, a lot of these people might not be interested in going through the whole, dog and pony show on what you can do for them and this and that. They just want you to do it, especially automotive, who could probably care a lot less about how it's done and just want the result.
Yeah, for sure.
They're probably just like, hey, that guy Alex that spoke at the show, he knows the shit he's talking about. So let's just hire his company. All right, do a quick Google search, because I'm sure you have automotive clients, right? You're coming in.
That's exactly it. We don't even need the booth in those cases. That they just that's the, and what helped when I wrote the book, and now I bring the book and I hand out the book. So that's a good because they see my session, maybe they'll forget my name, they'll forget the company. I don't know. They're absorbing so much information that day, and I don't know. I could hand them a business card, but a lot of people don't even take the business card. I hand it to people, they take a picture and hand it back to me. But this is a good keepsake to hand out, and they feel like it's something of value, and they actually take it with them. So that's been helpful. Is
that a Chat GPT generated book there?
Oh man, so it was right before Chat GPT. So I wrote it the old-fashioned way, typing like on every character I type myself, and then at the end of the book, so I wrote it. It's almost 2 years. I think exactly 2 years ago. I wrote it in November 2 years, so almost 2 years ago. At the end of the book, I'm like, there's this generative AI stuff coming from. It wasn't even ChatGPT. At that point, it was just a GPT model, and I'm like, there's all this stuff coming. Keep an eye on it. But it was no. What was frustrating is I wrote it before the ChatGPT stuff, and then by the time the publishing company published it, it was after. So it was like, if I can't say it's outdated, but it felt outdated because it didn't really mention generative AI, which became the hottest topic. So on my to-dos is actually to update it. October was going to be the month I updated. So now we're pushing that off to November.
I did my book back in 2022. Cool. 2022. And this book here.
Same. I did 2022.
Yeah, 2020, but I didn't use GPT. This was done by a ghostwriter, and I actually had a ghostwriter write this for me. A guy that I sat down with, sat with me for 4 different sessions, recorded our conversations, and then through that said he basically put my book together. I didn't even know what the title of it was going to be. I didn't know the premise of it.
That's great.
It was amazing. He put it together, and now what I do is I put this book transcript into a private GPT. That's my personal ghostwriter. So all my style of writing is written in the same style of this book. So it. Yeah.
Well, I think that's what Jason. I don't know. Do you know Jason Hennessy? He does also SEO, but I remember. So he wrote this book. Well, he does law firm stuff. He also speaks at a lot of conferences. But I remember he told me similarly. It was. I guess you would also call it ghostwriter, but similarly, he said. I think he said once a week he did a 4-hour session talking, and then they made it into a book.
Is that right?
It sounds like similar, but he did it for a long time. I think it's also more technical and 250 pages. So it's a little.
Unfortunately, that is one job that has been eaten by AI and ChatGPT.
Oh, for sure. So the funny thing is, so it could have been so helpful for me. Not so. Take a step back. English isn't my first language. I was born in Kiev, Ukraine. I came here when I was 7, but like I, I speak English, but I can't say grammar is my strong point. So for sure, writing. Luckily, I write. So I wrote the whole book. I wrote the whole. It's 200 something pages, I think. 160. I wrote the whole book. I did 1 hour. No, what did I do? I did in 1 month. I forget how many hours I spent. Oh no, I remember. I did 1 hour a day. I did 1 hour a day in November, for like 20 something days. So I wrote in 20 hours. So it wasn't bad because I write quick. But for sure, grammar isn't what my strong point, and generative AI could have helped with that tremendously. Second of all, I've never written a book, nor do I really read books. So I had, I don't think I've read like a book since like college, right? So I had very little to go by like how many chapters should a book have, right? Like I don't know, like something you could ask generative AI now. You could say how many chapters, suggest chapter ideas, right? I had to do things the old-fashioned way. I had to like go on Google and like literally look up how many chapters a book should have, and the answers are all over the place. So it's been very useful. Now that I'm gonna update it, I have to give some thought of ways I could have generative AI help. And I think chapter ideas would be super helpful. I think there's a lot of things it could help with other than, I don't want it writing content for me. I still want to write my own content, but there's so many ways it could help.
100%. Like in even that, I teach at a college here in Toronto, and at that college, I tell students, it's like you can't solely use generative AI to write your content. I don't suggest that, but I can suggest it by leading you in the right direction to write good content by doing outlines.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, 100%. So, I mean, great segue. How has SmartSites adapted to the surge in Gen AI?
Yeah, good question. So we pay for ChatGPT Plus. What is it called now? They keep shifting the models and the names for it, but the paid version for a lot of our employees. Recently, I've been kind of suggesting people try out Microsoft Copilot first before we pay for the subscription, because it's Microsoft Copilot is based on the premium version of ChatGPT and has image creation in it that ChatGPT doesn't natively have. But for sure, we've been. Step one is to encourage everyone to use it, to be aware of it, right? If you don't know about it and don't know what it can do, you're already at a disadvantage. Fine, you could choose that it doesn't. I believe it doesn't help my job. I don't want to use it, but at least you should know what it does before you make that conclusion. So I think that's very important to make sure everyone has access to it. Everyone knows what it could do. But we've tried to use it everywhere that makes sense. We create, on the SEO side, we create a lot of content. So when it just came out, we were very excited because we thought we'd be able to either create a lot more content for our clients, or charge them less for the same amount we're creating now, or a combination of both. That was the theory. But what's interesting is in the end, it didn't end up being that way. I think ultimately, so we sell our SEO by hour. So some buys 50 hours a month, and then we use those hours for link building, content creation, technical SEO. It turned out we're pretty much producing the same amount with the same hours, but the quality is now better. So what will end up happening is you can't just use generative AI to create content for you, because ultimately it's not going to be good content. It's not going to, even though Google's stance originally was that they will treat all content as content regardless of how it was created. That was and I was stunned that they came. This was February of, not this February, but February ago. They said they came out. We know about AI content. Our stance is content's content, regardless of how it's created, as long as it's quality content. And I was like, I don't know, Google, this doesn't sound like a good idea. They've since revised that stance, and they have penalized a lot of poor quality content. They haven't come out and said specifically we're penalizing AI content, but pretty much they're trying to do that without.
Do you struggle coming up with new content ideas? you got to check out topicalmap.ai. Stop wasting time manually mapping topics when AI can do it for you in under just 1 minute. 1,000 plus target keywords in just one click. SEO maps, question maps, product idea maps, social first maps. Check it out, topicalmap.ai.
So creating content with generative AI, I can't say, well, I guess it's in Google's eyes, in most cases, it comes out low quality. And we've done a lot of A/B tests actually, and sometimes it actually ranks very well. So it's a crapshoot, but I would not encourage anyone to, as a primary strategy, use generative AI to create tons of spammy content.
Have you tried any bulk content generation tools like Cuppa.ai or anything like that?
Yeah, we tried a bunch. In the end, what comes out to be the best and the best use of AI and the best content and best everything is you have a project manager who's really familiar with the client's website and the client's niche and what the client's trying to accomplish. That project manager, in a strategy role, determines, and maybe using generative AI for ideas, but ultimately in a strategic role determines the kind of content that's relevant for the website. Then maybe have generative AI suggest some content like topics, ideas, suggestions, whatever. You could even have generative AI write the first draft, but ultimately have a content writer do legit research and write a legit content that sounds like it's made for people to read, not just to spam Google. And then maybe have ChatGPT tighten up a little bit and then go back to the content person again to add some more, to QA it. Like ChatGPT is still, not just ChatGPT, all generative AI models still what's called hallucinate. So if you Google it, all the research studies show that it hallucinates a lot of the times. And the more remote the topic, the more hallucination. So if you want to really play with it, you could go and try to do some stuff with like politics outside of the major countries, maybe even outside of the US. So like start asking politics about like a random country in Africa and see how it does. It's very like, it'll hallucinate a lot of answers. So you still definitely need a QA, you still need a editorial component. And then at the end, after it goes through the content writer, it goes through the generative AI, it still needs to go to a final editor to look through everything and publish it. So ultimately, the process has become longer to create the content. Certainly a little bit more efficient using generative AI. The content writer is not spending 3 hours researching ideas because generative AI could help them research ideas, but certainly hasn't produced the efficiencies we were hoping in terms of how much could be produced. It's just increased the quality of what's produced.
SmartSites is a very big agency. I would tell you a very big agency. You get, how many employees do you have now?
Over 400.
Over 400 employees across the world, right?
Yeah.
And how many clients you working with roughly?
Thousands.
Thousands of clients. Okay. And you offer everything from hosting to SEO to all sorts of marketing services, right? So my question is when you have an agency so big, it's very challenging to be nimble and keep up with the times, with the ever emerging trends. How do you go about it when you're managing a team so massive to be able to accommodate all these new changes?
Yeah, and a good question. And I wouldn't consider us super big. I still consider us the small, nimble agency. But no, for sure. And if you think about it, in a world without that being an advantage, so let's just say without the smaller agencies are more nimble. If you strip that away, bigger companies always have a huge advantage. And bigger, I mean, not us like Publicis with like, I don't know, 100,000 employees, right? So if you think about it, why haven't the agency space super consolidated to these 3 big players, 2 big players that do everything? If you have 100%, you have huge economies of scale with an agency. And the reason why agencies like yours and mine still exist is because no matter what kind of economies of scale Publicis and the other big players might have, they will never be nimble enough. They will, because of their scale, it's decisions and the way things move always become slow moving, and because of that, it creates opportunities for other agencies. So that aside, I believe that being super nimble and agile is the most important trait any small business could have. Agency, not agency. So if you think about the COVID times, for example, and again, I do a lot of stuff in automotive, so I'll use some automotive examples. But during COVID times, a lot of dealerships had to close, right? They physically, in New York State, they couldn't physically be open for, I think, 6 months, 9 months. Same for restaurants. We had a lot of restaurant clients that pretty much went out of business. But if you think about what dealerships survived and actually flourished, and dealerships, restaurants, you could think of anything, which businesses survived and flourished coming out of COVID, during COVID, versus the ones that failed and closed. A lot of them, restaurants, in the New York City metro, you had 20% of restaurants closed. Some of them never reopened, right? And if you think about it, what was the difference, right? And the difference was the ones that remained open, the ones that actually benefited and came out more successful than they were before, were the ones that were very agile and nimble. And that goes to every part of the operation. I'll cite some examples just to help people visualize it. But for example, you're a dealership, right? You sold cars before. If you think about the car sales process, if you purchased a car pre-COVID, I promise you purchased it in person. If you called up a dealership before COVID and you said, I want to buy a car, this is how much I want to spend, I promise you no person would sell you a car over the phone. Their only prompt would be to come in and they wouldn't even give you a price over the phone. They wouldn't give you the finance rates. They wouldn't give you the lease prices. You'll get absolutely nothing out of them. The prompt was always just come in, right? So the dealerships actually came out on top and were successful through COVID and coming out of COVID, were the ones that very quickly realized that they needed to be flexible, right? That's the agility. You have to quickly move your entire model from doing everything in person to, and it wasn't just going from in person to digital, right? It was the agility to be able to first of all, move your business model, and then second of all, be flexible. So some people still wanted to come in person once they were allowed to, right? Some people wanted to do it over the phone. Some people wanted to do it over live chat on the website. Some people wanted to do it over text message, right? The dealerships that were successful were the ones that actually embraced that model and empower their salespeople to, yes, you could actually discuss finance and lease rates on the phone with people, right? Before COVID, that was never a thing. I promise you, no one gave you a lease price over the phone. But the ones that were successful are the ones that quickly adapted to this new model. And it wasn't just from physical to digital. It was about offering up different choices for consumers that sure, discuss the finance rate with someone over live chat. That was crazy, right? Pre-COVID, no one would think of that. And similar for restaurants. If you think about it, your local restaurants in your area that were super, super successful during COVID are the ones that pivoted, the ones that were quick to use their online presence, quick to boost their social media, right? If I think about the ones here that were around me that were successful, they're the ones that all of a sudden became very strong in social, right? They were doing all these events, like, fine, we can't physically open the restaurant, but we'll make food and you could come pick it up, right? Like, or do like these fundraisers and these like Halloween night, and all of a sudden they engaged the people around them, the community, right? So they were very, very quick to adapt. Obviously, like McDonald's as a chain can't quickly adapt and have those kind of chains. They also, all the chains also adapted and they got into the apps, and McDonald's now started doing their own delivery pickup. But if you think about it, they came out with that a year post-COVID. So for small businesses, no matter business agency, whatever you are, I think for sure being able to adapt and being agile is probably the most important trait you could have.
100%. And I think you're right. It's the survival of the fittest, right? Those businesses that were able to adapt in 2020 and beyond are the ones that are thriving today, because they're adapting to the changing world. And I'm sure they're adapting to the new technology and Gen AI and whatever else is on the horizon. So Alex, like in SmartSites, in your business, do you see one of the service offerings taking a hit over the course of the next 24 months due to what's happening with AI?
So it's interesting. So I think, what can I say? So our entire business model, and I think yours in a way too, is very tied to consumer behavior being search centric. And what I mean by that is culturally, we all have shifted our behaviors to being search centric. So what I mean by that is 5, 6, let's go back. Let's go way back. Let's go back 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, you would come home and let's say your pipe burst in your basement and it's flooding your basement, right? You would probably call a family member or friend for a plumber recommendation. You'd probably go and look up the yellow pages, white pages, the big books. I don't know. You got them in Canada too, right?
Yellow pages. Big books. The big, yeah. They're now used as fire scraps. Right?
The office we took over in Paramus, the one no one wants to go into anymore. It used to be actually the Yellow Pages division or department, or whatever it is. But yeah, 10 years ago, that was how you found things, right? You would ask a family member, you would ask a friend, or you would look it up in the Yellow Pages. That was how we found services businesses, right? Even restaurants, right? I'm trying to think of like before. Let's go back 15 years, maybe before.
By the way,
like
what
Yelp.
a great buy! What a great purchase! Buying like a half-page ad in the Yellow Pages back in like 1990. They must have crushed it.
Even better than that, the strategy in the 1990s was to name your business to start with A. So if you think about it, the reason why so many businesses start with the letter A is because they were at the front of the Yellow Pages. That was it.
A1 Taxi. A1 Taxi. There's a taxi. A1 Taxi. Brilliant.
We had a client, A Absolute Plum. If you think about it, it literally you needed to be at the front, so you would rename your business to start with A. So that was the business model. You don't need the full page ad. You just rename your business to start with A in your set. But that's
now you get in 2024. Now it's Toronto snow removal.
It's not. You don't need the A plus Toronto snow removal.
Yeah.
But that's how we found things, and then we over time as consumers, we became very search centric, where we search everything. So your pipe's leaking now, you'll pull out your cell phone and you'll search plumber near me, right? I don't know. We have some holidays coming up. I don't think so. Halloween's coming up. You're having a Halloween party. You want to make some cookies for Halloween, right? Before you would call your like mom, aunt, grandma, I don't know, for cookie recipes. Now you gotta go online and search for cookie recipes, right? So our behavior in almost everything we do has become search centric and it really snuck up on us. I remember before starting SmartSites, I worked at Publicis for a couple of years, and this was 13, 14 years ago. And when I was there, I remember every year was the year of mobile. And I remember we tracked how many apps a person, like the average person has 3 apps. Holy shit, this is going to be the year of mobile. And then kind of snuck up on us. And all of a sudden it became everything mobile. So that enabled us as a society to be very search centric. Again, search for everything, recipes, a plumber, car dealership, car model. I think for the first time ever, there's a move away from being a search-centric society due to generative AI, right? For example, back to our cookie recipe. So if you want cookies for Halloween, you're gonna go on Google. You gotta Google cookie recipes. You're gonna find a lot of recipe websites that have tons of ads and pop-ups and are very hard to navigate. You're gonna wind up getting malware in your computer. You gotta click something wrong and wind up with a virus and have to reformat your computer. Right? The experience has gotten worse on the search side, and then with generative AI, you ask generative AI for a cookie recipe, and it'll give you a cookie recipe and read it off to you line by line, right? So for the first time ever, I think there's a move away from being search centric. There's a lot of implications, of course. Where is generative AI getting the cookie recipe from, right? It's still getting it from websites, right? It doesn't create its own content. Like AI has not developed a taste for Halloween cookies to create its own recipe. So it's still getting content from the internet, but there's for the first time ever a small shift away being search centric. So if there's any, I think, risks or changes, that's going to be it. I think it's going to be obviously a lot more disruptive for Google than anyone else, because for them to drop 1% market share, they go out of business, right? They can't that's not the world that they will survive in, because search generates the majority of their profits. So I think that's the shift that's possible. I don't think it necessarily makes agencies irrelevant, but I think similar to COVID, only this will be slower moving. It wouldn't be like one day you wake up and everything's shut down. I think similar to COVID, there's definitely threats. And I think similar to COVID, you want to be cognizant of these possible shifts, which being in this industry, started my first company in 97. So it's been a very, very long time. Being in this industry since probably since before 97, I think it's one of the bigger shifts in not only digital, but how consumers will use technology. So, and again, it won't happen overnight. I think there's no all of a sudden, oh, search is not relevant. So who needs a website? I don't need to be found on Google, right? I don't think it's one of those, but I think in general, generative AI is an existential threat to Google. And I think a lot of agencies and small businesses and anyone at this point that relies on internet traffic has really become very search centric. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I think companies, as long as in their nature, they're able to be agile and flexible, I think everyone's going to be okay. A lot of people have been panicking. I've been asked to speak about generative AI to a lot of boards and executives because they're like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. We're all going to lose our jobs. I don't think it's one of those, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on. And you want to be agile either ahead of or as things happen. You don't want to be, unless you're McDonald's and have the presence that you do, you don't want to be putting out the delivery pickup app a year after COVID, right? You want to be doing it like before COVID, right? So I think that's a big one that's upon us, and I think there's a lot of scare tactics being used about it, or not some on purpose, some not on purpose, but I think that's a big thing coming in the next 12 to 24 months.
What I'm seeing now is every single day my inbox is inundated with people trying to pitch me these automated lead gen services, AI lead gen services. So in terms of sales, is there anything that's changed in terms of sales? Because it's becoming a more and more noisier environment with the spam pitches on LinkedIn and email, this and that. What's the strategy now as we move ahead with AI being another tool that sales teams can use?
Yeah.
What's the strategy?
Yeah, I hate the spam pitches. So it goes back to even what you mentioned about conferences and getting the spam things. So as an agency, we don't do any outbound. So I want to say fortunate, but from one side fortunate, from the other side, maybe we should be doing outbound, but we don't do any outbound, meaning that we just market ourselves and people call needing our services and the salespeople pick up those phone calls. So our teams are not doing those spam outbound stuff. I think in the past, when I've spoken to companies that are very reliant on outbound, either for sales or even networking for conferences, I always recommend that people try to be authentic and not spammy. You don't want to automate a message to everyone. You want to be short message to a select individual and highlight why. Like, why you're contacting that person, right? You found them because they work at X, Y, and Z, and you've helped another company that's similar, right? You know why, but for some reason, people just send automate spam nothing, right? You want to say, like, I saw you do this. You want to be authentic. I think authenticity is going to become super important. I think generative AI is getting better and better. So the spam messages don't always look like spam, and they're getting smarter. But I think for at least the next 12 to 24 months, I don't think generative AI is going to be able to do authenticity. So I do think I think in the world of spams and scams, I think authenticity is going to continue to be super, super important. Outbound's going to be tough. And I agree with you. I've always gotten a lot of spam, LinkedIn, everywhere. And so it's like people connect. Now I can't accept connections anyway. I'm over 30,000. But people are connect with me and it looked like, I have a lot of connections in common. This person looks interesting. They send me an introduction message. like, hey, Alex, I saw you speak somewhere. I'd love to connect with you. I press accept. And then I get like spam from that person, like spam, another spam. You haven't responded. Here's another offer. Would you like some link building, backlinks?
Yeah.
You're looking for backlinks? I'm looking for work. You want to hire me? I'm looking that's I think it's only going to increase, but I think in that world, authenticity is going to be supreme.
Well, that's why you take advantage of speaking opportunities to get on a stage and build that credibility with the audience and build that personal brand. So I think as we evolve to times when people strive or look for convenience in everything that they do, there's going to be more of an emphasis on that human element and the importance of building that personal brand. There's going to be a premium to be working with an actual personal brand as opposed to just some AI agency, which can be done for cheap. I think there's something to be said for that. And I think it's such a great opportunity to take advantage of your area of expertise and getting on a stage and talking to people about it.
It's interesting. I think for a long time, at least for us, so we there's a lot of agencies that embraced remote work before COVID. We were not one of them, and we actually invested a lot in office space. And for us, the big advantage was having a physical office, B, telling people we have a physical office, C, clients being able to come in and meet with our salespeople, our project managers, everyone they work with in person. And what was interesting is that 9 times out of 10, they would not do it. But they still gave a big benefit to us for them knowing that they are able to do it, right? That was like a huge selling point, especially when there's so much outsourcing and agencies outside of the US who may be trying to pitch similar services for less. And sure, the service will be worse, but to the consumer, that's not what they were noticing. What they were noticing is that the ability to, and by the way, we had some clients that randomly we're in New Jersey. We'd be like, you could always come in. We had like a company from Texas that randomly like flew in to meet with without any notice. So people definitely took advantage of it. But for a long time, that was the big premium that you could offer, that you have a physical in-person office. I think that kind of got stripped away with COVID. So now I do agree that personal brand is replaced that a little bit. I don't know if you know Gary Vee he's also from New Jersey. Well, he's in New York City, but he was always a big proponent of the personal brand and kind of, I don't want to say coattailing, but using the personal brand. So it's interesting. I think there's definitely going to be personal brand and certain other things now to replace the comfort that a lot of people felt that, oh, you're in the US and you have a physical office in the US and I could come into a physical office, because that was always so valuable to us. And now with COVID, I think people give it less value, and of course our employees don't use the office. So.
That makes sense. Awesome. Alex, this has been great. If I could probably sit here and talk to you for like a Joe Rogan-esque 3-hour episode, but I got time for that. So if our audience has any questions for you, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, good question. So if you go to alexmelen.com, ALEXMELEN.com, I have all my social profiles linked on the bottom, and I think you could even email me from that site.
Awesome. Alex, thanks for joining. We'll talk to you soon.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, podcast listener, for checking out that episode of Drop the Mic. If you like that episode, I would love it if you went on over to your podcast platform and left us a 5-star review. And if you don't want to miss an upcoming episode of Drop the Mic, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.